Hi everyone, today we're discussing dyspraxia, which is a neurological learning disability present from birth. And I have Susie Pinches here, who's a speech therapist, here to tell us all about it. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what is dyspraxia exactly?
Dyspraxia is a neurological disorder of motor origin where the child finds it very difficult to organise their patterns of movement to, in my area, to form the required movements for articulation, and in motor often to put their fingers and limbs, etc., to find the right patterns of movement. So it's a disturbance in a motorical context.
Okay, so there's motor dyspraxia. What are the other two types?
There's verbal dyspraxia, which is more what I deal with as a speech pathologist, and there's also oral dyspraxia. And the term that they're trying to use a bit more now is childhood apraxia of speech. But really the terms are a bit interchangeable.
So what are the symptoms?
Okay, the symptoms usually with speech are children who are extremely unclear in their speech. Speech and language pathologists have quite a difficult time diagnosing those children because it is not easy, and often we only get a handful of the kids within any given caseload. But I guess it's a lot more severe than a child with what we call more the normal developmental articulation difficulties, and often you can see groping for sounds. There's huge variance in the number of sounds they use. They might have lots of different sound substitutions for the one sound. Sometimes you'll teach a sound and the child will get it for a while and then they lose it again, or another error will come up. So it's often inconsistent. They often have a lot more difficulty putting longer sentences together, or they may be able to say single words, but they can't put those words within a sentence.
So is there somewhere that the children can go? Is there a special school for them to develop?
It really depends on how severe the apraxia is, or dyspraxia. If very, very severe and a child is non-verbal, often they will need quite a lot of help with augmentative or alternative means of communication. And that might be using some signing to help them to speech, might be computer. If things are severe enough and there can be other disorders accompanying dyspraxia, then those children may go to a special school, but a lot of the kids we see would just be in a mainstream school and may or may not have problems, other learning problems with their language or comprehension.
Now, is there anything that the child's preschool or school can do?
Yes, most definitely. Once a speech and language pathologist is working with a child with apraxia of speech, then there needs to be lots of involvement with all carers, family and childcare workers, kindergarten workers, school, whoever is involved. And often we do try and implement augmentative methods such as signing, or working with the teachers so that they know what sort of things the child is capable of saying. And yes, as I said before, the most important thing is to keep their communication going, because that's the most important part to their socialisation, etc. So we need support from all avenues of the child's life.
Now, is this disability something that can be overcome, or is it just a matter of dealing with it?
Look, a lot of the kids we work with do very, very well. It really is very much based on the individual child, but it is certainly a disorder, as I said, that's hard to diagnose, but it is a severe difficulty and it's likely to persist into early school years, and that child may need really a lot of support and a lot of quite intense therapy.
Now, when you say it's hard to diagnose, there isn't a special, they don't look any different from other kids, do they? It's just really...
No, no. And it's a matter of having a battery of tests and knowing that child very well. The more simple, straightforward articulation tests that we use aren't enough to test these children, because they can be clear on one word, but then when you delve deeper, they're not clear when they're talking within sentences, or they're not clear when they're using different words or using a sound in different positions.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, pleasure.
Now I'm with Cherie Marshall, who's an occupational therapist, and we're discussing motor dyspraxia. Now, what is an occupational therapist?
Occupational therapists work with people of any age, including children, who are having difficulties with their everyday living skills as a result of a disability or an impairment or some other sort of condition. OTs are trained to look at why a person's having difficulties by assessing the individual within the context of their environment and the tasks that they're required to perform. Occupational therapists who work with children use meaningful activity and lots of fun play activities, and sometimes modifications and adaptations to help that child move towards independence and reach their optimum potential in all their different environments.
So is it a matter of a child saying to themselves, I want to go grab this bottle, but their body isn't doing it, so their mind's telling them that they can do it, but their body just can't physically do it? Is that right?
Yeah, that's sort of right. So children are born with developmental motor dyspraxia, and it's thought to be an immaturity of the motor cortex in the brain. So as you said, it's a problem with the messages travelling from the brain down to the muscles. So a child knows what they want their body to do, but they have a lot of trouble getting their body to do that in a smooth, coordinated fashion, which can be extremely frustrating.
And what's a common problem that they have?
Probably the most significant thing parents or teachers would notice would be a delay in the development of their either gross motor skills, so ability to run, jump, swim, learn to ride a bike, or their ability to use their hands for things such as drawing, writing, cutting, or it might even be self-care skills such as being able to dress themselves or use eating utensils.
Is it something that can be overcome, or is it just a matter of dealing with it?
Yes and no. A child may always have dyspraxia, but the impact that has on their life certainly lessens as they get older. Dyspraxia is a disorder of motor planning, and motor planning is only required when you're learning a new motor task. If you think about learning to drive a car for the first time, it's so tricky trying to get your hands and your feet changing the gears and coordinating that sequence well. But once you've practiced it and you're proficient at that, you can pretty much drive a car without thinking at all. There's no longer any motor planning required. So with dyspraxia, it can have a really significant impact on a child's life from infancy up until about early primary school age, where kids are learning the bulk of the motor skills they'll need for the rest of their life. And then after that, the impact normally lessens.
Where can parents go for help?
If they're concerned that their child might have motor dyspraxia, I'd recommend they contact their local community health service and see if there's a paediatric OT that works there, or they could contact the Australian Association of Occupational Therapists to access a private practitioner. I'd also recommend they talk to their child's paediatrician about any developmental concerns they may have. And there's also the Australian Dyspraxia Association, which is the peak body for dyspraxia in Australia. They're a great resource for parents in terms of extra information, support and referral, and they've got a website that's www.dyspraxia.com.au.
So with every day, what can parents do with their children? I mean, it has to make learning fun, so is there anything that they can do on a daily basis?
Look, we often spend a lot of time talking to parents about how they can break complex tasks down into small achievable steps for the child who has dyspraxia. So it's about helping the child to make that plan for the sequence, whether it's dressing in the morning or learning how to write their name, breaking that down into small achievable steps and helping the child to learn each small part of that task and then put it all back together again for them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me. If you'd like to find out more information, just jump on the Kids Life website.